Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I see you. Welcome to today's webinar on the Mandela Washington Fellowship application. If you're checking in, just leave a comment and tell us where you're viewing this from. My name is Grace, and I am joining here from Canada. Hello, Stanley. Hello, everyone. Welcome on board. All right. So we are in for a really, really good time. Our speakers are here, and we will get right into it. So yes, do use the comment section to tell us where you're joining us from and where you're viewing this from. Tell us your country, and that should be fine. Awesome. I see Ghana, I see Nigeria. Yes, keep it coming, keep it coming. Mali, we have Mali viewers here, Tanzania, amazing. And we have Malawi and Zimbabwe. Okay. All right, my slide isn't coming up right now, but I just want to say welcome once again. Today's webinar is going to help you learn how to become one of the fully sponsored young leaders selected for the Mandela Washington Fellowship in the United States. I know that all of us here today are interested in being one of the 700 leaders who will be selected to go on this fellowship program. Truly, being a fellow is a prestigious tag to have. And so I would understand the interest and why it's so high, and of course, why you should take this really seriously. Okay, my slide is ready. Exciting. So at the end of this webinar, you'll take out two things. One, I'm hoping that you will learn the secrets to a successful application. And two, I'm hoping that you get practical tips to achieve success in your application, and not just your application, but in your interview, because I believe that the people joining us today will move on to the interview stage. So we're going to share some tips at the end of this session that you can take back home with. This is a highly competitive fellowship program, so pay attention to everything that we'll be sharing here today so you can get maximum benefits. So again, the Mandela Washington Fellowship will bring up to 700 young leaders to the US in the summer of 2024 for a comprehensive executive style program, which is around 6 weeks in duration, after which fellows, of course, converge in Washington, D.C. for the annual summit. All of this is designed to build your skills and empower you to lead in your respective sectors and communities. I put these pictures together. I couldn't get pictures from the rest of the speakers, but I'm sure they have amazing photos as well. But I wanted to just say that this could be you in 2024. This could absolutely be you in 2024. So if you want to be that person, I was in Kansas State University, and yeah, I had a very good time. There were times I made presentations on behalf of the cohort and for my project, and there were times I went visiting, different places, and we got together in groups to do a lot of work together. So yeah, that's a screenshot of what my experience there looked like. Just before I bring these amazing speakers that we have today on board, I wanted us to go over the selection criteria for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. I'm sure you have seen our posts about it. You have read through, you understand who is eligible to apply. I believe that you understand who is eligible to apply. But today I just want to delve into the selection criteria, helping us to better understand it so we can, before we move on and everybody is on the same page. So number one, the first criteria that the judges are going to use or the reviewers are going to use to select who would eventually become a fellow is a proven track record of leadership and accomplishment in business or entrepreneurship, civic engagement, and or public or government service. So I underlined the words proven record of leadership and accomplishment because that, for me, is the key thing in this sentence, right? So if you are going to apply to the business sector, then you need to show that you've done some reasonable amount of work in that sector. You have some results to show, and that you have led certain initiatives or taken up certain leadership positions, if I mean, so to speak, in that sector. So I remember when I was applying, and I really wanted to be in the business sector because I got to a place in my life where I felt like I want to understand business principles even better and be able to apply it to the work I'm already doing so I can transition from NGO type of work to business. But then I was advised strongly not to do that, not to apply in the business sector. Why? Because I didn't have track record of accomplishment in business. I had track record of accomplishments in social entrepreneurship. I had track record of accomplishments in community work, civic engagement type of activities and work. And so I had to apply in that sector so that I can get selected for the fellowship. But I benefited so much because during my institute, we touched on lots of business related topics. So that criteria is very important. Make sure you have a proven track record in the sector or the track you are looking to apply to. And the second one says a demonstrated commitment. The underlining word there is commitment. You have to show that you are actually committed to the work you're doing. You are committed to community service, which is very important to the US government, and you are committed to volunteering or mentorship. But there has to be that element of either community service or volunteering or mentorship in the work you're doing. So I see a lot of people run businesses, but those businesses don't have any social value or any problems that they're solving in the community, either social problems or environmental challenges that they're solving. So you have to be able to tie whatever you're doing to any of these three factors that have been listed. And the third selection criteria is the ability to work cooperatively in diverse groups, to respect the opinions of others. So if you're someone who is closed up to other people's ideas regarding different things, right? I know how we are as Africans. We can be very, we tend to hold on strongly to what we know, what we believe, and what we understand, right? And that's okay. But if you're coming to this institute and you want to be selected as a fellow, you have to move away from that type of mindset to the mindset of openness, someone who is open to respecting other people's opinions, listening to their views, understanding why they think this way, why they act the way they do, why they believe this way, and respecting that. But not someone who would be condescending or who would judge or who would discriminate against other people based on who they are and what they believe. You must be someone who has the ability to work cooperatively, not someone who brings up fights or conflicts in group situations, because this fellowship is one that is designed in such a way that you're going to live together with people from diverse cultures in Africa, people from diverse backgrounds in Africa. And so your ability to cooperate and live peacefully with these people is very important. It's crucial to the success of the fellowship. The fourth selection criteria is a strong social and communication skill. And no, we're not saying you should have an accent. When we say have strong social and communication skill, we're saying, are you able to interact with other people? Are you able to mix up nicely, network, meet people, introduce yourself, speak clearly, share ideas or information about who you are, what you do, in a way that other people can understand? Are you someone that communicates effectively, that shares information in a way that other people can grasp and also make contributions? Are you someone that listens? Are you someone that also contributes? It's all encompassing. If you don't know what these are, go and look them up, research. And today, of course, we're going to be talking about some of these. The fifth criteria is an energetic and positive and flexible attitude. And of course, how are we going to measure this, or how are the reviewers going to measure this? It's going to exude in the way you're writing your essays, in your profile, the kind of work you do, and how you are communicating, who you are, your passion, your interests, and all of that. So be that person who is genuinely excited about this opportunity and being part of this cohort of change makers. So the next one is a demonstrated knowledge of, interest in, and professional experience in the preferred sector or track you're choosing. You need to show that you have knowledge of the civic engagement sector, or knowledge of the public sector or track, or knowledge of the business track. Whatever sector or track you choose to apply to for this fellowship, you need to be able to show that you have some experience, expertise, ideas, knowledge, you have interest, and you have, of course, professional experience in that area, because that is going to help you speak from a place of results, right? And you're not just speaking like someone who doesn't know much and is trying to still learn the ropes. So the Mandela Washington Fellowship is for accomplished young people, young leaders, people who have gone beyond the basic level of things and know exactly what they're doing, but are still open to learning and growing. Finally, a commitment to return back home when you're done. So this last piece may not look like it's important, right? But it's so crucial, because if you're not able to demonstrate that you have something concrete back home that you're going to come back to, it might, of course, lead to your rejection. And they may not even select you and then get to the visa stage. The visa stage is like, it's an easy pace. It's so simple. There's literally no interview. I don't think there are interviews, or very difficult interviews, because before you are even selected as a fellow, they have made sure that you are the right candidate and you're the right person. So if you want to be selected or called for an interview, you have to be able to show and demonstrate. Even during the interview, they might be asked questions that will point to these very criteria. So if you had any intentions of jackpying, for those of us from Nigeria, or you had any intentions of just disappearing, many people do have such intentions. I'd like you to please kill that idea and see this as professional development experience that allows you to go out there, learn as much as you can, get as much resources and networks and connections as you can, and then come back home and give back to your community. Remember, you're a young leader. You left, you're leaving home, you're leaving your organizations, so you're expected to come back and make an impact where you have left. All right, so this is the selection criteria in a brief. We'll drop the links to the website where you'll find more information about the Mandela Washington Fellowship. But I would like to then move on by introducing the wonderful guests that we have today. They are here already. As I call them, I will bring them up to the stage. I'm hopeful that that is possible here. Yes, it should be. So first of all, myself, I'm a 2016 Mandela Washington Fellow. I studied in the leadership engagement track, and my institute was the Kansas State University. Prior to going there, I had never heard about Kansas. So I found out about Kansas through the Mandela Washington Fellowship, and it turned out to be such a lovely, lovely, peaceful, calm city. I had a good time in Manhattan throughout my stay there. And when I got back home to Nigeria, I served as the vice president of the Mandela Washington Fellowship Association of Nigeria. It was my first time contesting for a position, and I was successful. That was such a great experience for me. And of course, as vice president, I spearheaded one of our successful projects, which is the Beyond School Community Challenge project for the association. So in a brief, that's me. That's why I am here and I'm doing my best. I've put this together with the team at Opportunity Desk to ensure that more fellows, more people, more applicants get selected next year for the fellowship program. The next person that we have today is Mahfouz Alabidun. He's the Executive Director of Inmates Educational Foundation. He's here. Welcome on stage. So he's the Executive Director of Inmates Educational Foundation. He's an award-winning social change leader who advocates for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Mahfouz has liberated over 1,000 inmates through his foundation. If you understand this type of work, you will know that this is not a mean feat. So congratulations, Mahfouz. He's a 2023 Mandela Washington Fellow, fresh out of the bag. He's one of the people who were selected this year. And so, yes, he'll be able to share some of his exciting experiences with all of you. The next person we have today is Virtue Oboro. Virtue is an entrepreneur. She's an inventor. She's a grant coach. Virtue in 2016 developed and launched Crib Aglow, an innovative solar-powered phototherapy unit for the treatment of neonatal jaundice. So she's the founder of Tiny Hearts Technology, and she's the author of Grant Funding Made Easy. Virtue was a 2018 Mandela Washington Fellow, and she was selected into the business track. So for those of you who have questions around that, Virtue will be here to share her story. And then we have Oyewole Joledo. Oyewole is an award-winning global change maker. Oye has over 13 years of mentoring, training, and coaching experience where he helps people to be productive in their business and civic work. He's currently the country director of Social Good Nigeria. Social Good Nigeria works to create and establish positive influences for individuals, communities, and the likes. And he's a 2018 Mandela Washington Fellow in the business track. Finally, but not the least, we do have Blessing Ashi. Blessing Ashi is the program lead for Tech for Dev. She's also a sexual reproductive health and rights advocate working with the government, private and public sector. She is a 2023 Mandela Washington Fellow, and she studied in the civic engagement track. I'm so excited to have Blessing, Mahfouz, Oye, Virtue joining me today. So feel free to use the comment section to ask your questions. I'm going to give each of them 5 to 10 minutes each to share their experiences and their tips. So permit me to take them off the screen, and they will come back up when it's time for them to speak. So Mahfouz, you'll be the first speaker. I'd like you to share your experiences with our amazing viewers today. How did you get selected for the Mandela Washington Fellowship? Were there rejections? Were there challenges? What worked for you? When I open the internet, when I try to Google Mandela Washington Fellowship tips, I see a lot of articles, which is amazing. Fellows are now, bringing all these tips out there and just to help other people be like them, right? And it's a lot to take in. So I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed seeing so much. But that's why we have this session today. What exactly do you think stood you out, worked for you? What was the best piece of advice you got? You had the time to literally just share your story with us and leave those tips with us today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and to all the audience. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from everywhere you are listening to me. So my name is Mahfouz Alabidun. I got to know about MWF in 2017. So that was when a fellow came, Barrister Ahmad Adetola. So he does something on Prisoners' Rights Advocacy Initiative. So he did a homecoming session, and I got to know about MWF from there. So 2018, I applied. I was not selected, obviously, because the pressure of, you can also do it, and I went for it. And so I didn't get it, but my project had started then, and so I needed more attention for my project. So I didn't really applied after a while, trying to strategize on my project, making sure that I was very fit for what I do. So in 2021, I applied. So that was maybe 3 years after I applied in 2018. So I applied. I was thinking I would be selected, but of course, I was not also selected. In fact, I didn't even get to the interview stage, and I got some people to help review, but I couldn't get anything. So then, after some while, I felt, what is happening? Is it not this Mandela Washington? Yes, a lot of people say I do a lot of interesting things, having go to the prison to teach, making sure they have access to education, trying to reform them, do a lot of things. And a lot of people said, yeah, you should be selected. So I got more challenge from people that, so why are you not selected? Are you sure you applied? What is happening? So then I went back to the drawing board to see what are the mistakes that I've been making over time. So what I did in 2022 that I applied was that I made sure that I attended series of sessions. Then I got some fellows who help in reviewing, fellows from 2017, 20, people, previous sessions. So I got them in. Then I made sure that I was very, very keen about the response, to the extent that sometimes I used 2 days in answering just one question out of the 5 questions. So I took my time. In fact, as at the time I was submitting, it was approximately 1 month so I took my time to ensure that I don't want to use the word kill the application, but to some extent I did my best in ensuring that I answered those questions correctly. So when I was selected, so let me talk about what made me stood out. So one of the things that made me stood out was, yes, my project is, yeah, very excellent, not competitive, not that everybody do what I do, just like what you used to have. So it was excellent. Let me put it that way. Then secondly, I think the locality I was applying from, because then I was serving in Ebonyi State. So it was also one of the things that stood out for me. In fact, to the extent that when we were trying to plan for the orientation, when we were going for the orientation, I saw one of the, coordinators. And so when I mentioned my name and my project, they were like, oh, so you are the one. So it means that they got to know more about me, and they were surprised that I was able to do something of such in that kind of locality where there was crisis in the east. Because when I was serving was when we have the major issue of sit at home in the east. So a lot of people were surprised about how I was able to launch that kind of project in that particular area where there was sit at home insecurity challenges, and my background as a Muslim, how was I able to do all these things? So in fact, to the extent that during the interview, all the questions that I was asked was all about, how was I able to launch such a project, in Ebonyi State where you have issues of security issues and all that. And of course, one of the things that I have learned and that has always worked for me is leading from behind as a leader. So I was able to get an indigene, so who speaks the language very well. She's a female, and then so for any outing that we want to go or for anything that we want to do, I will always make sure that she leads. Then I, guide her on what to do. So I think that also stood out for me. And of course, my application as well, the structure of your application writing and all, coupled with other support that I got from, fellows and friends who were able to vet. So yeah, one of the uninteresting thing that happened, although I think the day I submitted was the last day, and it was almost like 2 hours to the submission. So I didn't submit my, I think, one of the complimentary certificate that we're supposed to submit. And so I was almost losing hope that I would not be selected. So when I saw the first mail that congratulations, you've been selected, you've been shortlisted for the interview, I was very shocked. Unfortunately, I was even in a meeting with some group of people. I could not shout. I could not. It was just as if something hit me and I can't shout. So I had to rush out and just check the mail again, and I saw that, wow, this is real. So I'm preparing for an interview, and then we got to the interview. The whole question was about how was I able to launch such a project in a state where there was challenges and all. And then going to the interview, we were able to do our best, and yeah, so the rest was history, and I find myself in the US. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mahfouz. While you were speaking, it occurred to me that I had a similar experience. I like how you shared what made you really unique. I'm sure you didn't anticipate that they would dwell on on the fact that you were, working in a crisis-prone zone, despite being a Muslim, and then the safety issues that were surrounding your project at the time. That was the unique thing about you, because thousands of people are applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And at the end of the day, it is what's going to stand you out. What have you done that is like, that can make people go, wow, okay, this is great. And it reminded me of my own experience and how I got into the interview and I thought that, I was shortlisted because of my work with iCapture Center, all the projects we've done with out of school youth. I mean, amazing. I had great results. I pitched it well and it was good. But the one thing that they dwelt on, the one thing that they kept asking me questions about was one particular project I did with young girls where I helped them learn how to code. They created mobile apps, and then they joined the Technovation competition and even went to the US and won the competition in 2015. So they were just, amazed that, wow, how did you do it? How did you get the girls together? How did you convince their parents? We are so impressed with the way you are, helping girls to get into STEM, to take up careers in technology and things like that. I was like, ask me about other projects, ask me about other things. But that was what they really, really liked. So thank you for sharing that. It's a great reminder for everyone here to really think and look, just put out all you've done, right? But put out the one, let them see what's unique about you. Let them see what's different about you, and how you had to do certain things against all odds. Against all odds, whether you had the resources, the things that other people will not think about doing or other people will not think about adding. You mentioned that. And then also, you also highlighted that there was a missing document in your application, but then you were surprised that you were still called. That's true. Please don't make the same mistake.
Yes.
Mahfouz had a wonderful result that wowed them. That was why they were like, okay, we can excuse that.
Do you know that I guess it was my time, let me put it that way, because I didn't want to serve in the East in the first place. I tried all my possible best not to go to the East because of that issue. But this was what saved me at the end of the day. In fact, I got extension while serving. I got extension to the extent that I just got my certificate just recently in Abuja.
That's amazing.
So,
But what I wanted to say is everybody may not be this lucky, right? Yeah. So if you have any additional documents that you can include that will, show or demonstrate how fit and how excellent you are and why they should select you as a fellow, please include it. If it's a recommendation letter, include it. If it's something a commendation note from government or something, from your professor, from your school, from your place of work, please include it. All those achievements matter. This is the time to laud it. I'm trying to be as practical as possible, and so that everyone here understands what we're saying. All right. Thank you so much, Mahfouz. So I don't know if you should take a question now because there were some questions that came up while you were speaking, or we can leave it until all the other speakers have shared their own stories. So please stay with us. We'll come back for a few questions that we would like you to answer. Thank you. All right. So our next speaker is Virtue Oboro. Virtue, welcome. I hope you're here. Please let me know you are here. It's time for you to share your experience. All right, Virtue is here. Hi, Virtue. So tell us about your Mandela Washington Fellowship journey. I don't want to say anything, but I do know part of your story. I'll let you share that to encourage the people here, and then tell us that one thing that made you stand out, or that thing that helped you get selected this year. So yeah, you have the floor.
Hi, everybody. My name is Virtue Oboro. I am the founder of Tiny Hats Technology and the... have I muted my video? Okay. Okay, so I'm the founder of Tiny Hats Technology and the innovator of the Kriba Glow Phototherapy Unit. And I'm so excited to be part of this particular virtual meeting that Grace has put together. Not because I'm speaking or because I am a part of other fellows, but because it's an opportunity to help to equip other people who have not had this kind of opportunity in the past to actually be part of something or be qualified for something that can take them to the next level. So if you're here, count yourself worthy and worth it. If you're here and you're applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, when you get selected, when you don't get selected, remember these things I'm saying, that the journey is definitely worth it. So for me, my experience, I'll just take you through in 1 minute. I'll take you through my experience, and in the next minute, I'll tell you some of the things I looked out for while I was applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship program. So in 2016, I started my business very clueless on what kind of opportunities were out there for me. The first opportunity I applied for was an opportunity that amounted to nothing. I was promised in that particular program, we were promised opportunities to help grow our business, to help do a lot of things, and it just didn't work. And at the end of the program, it was something that threw me off balance. I was disappointed and everything. However, when I came across the Mandela Washington Fellowship about a year plus later, one of the people I met in another program told me, Virtue, I think that you have what it takes to actually win this, and I think you should apply. Out of fear and doubt in the first instance, I went to look at all the profiles and the people. The first thing I did was actually to Google and search Facebook, the internet, on previous winners, people who had gone for it. And the person who asked me, who said I should apply this time, was also a fellow in the previous year. So he actually knew the kind of people that the Mandela Washington Fellowship opportunity was for. At that time, I would say that there was competition. In 2018, there were up to 10,000 applications from all over Africa. What that meant was there was already competition, and there were people who had applied 1, 2, 3, 4 times before they eventually got selected. That was 2018. Mandela Washington started, I think, 2014. So that's to tell you that there were some people who had already been applying for that particular opportunity and were not getting it. Some people applied the first time and they got it. But in my case, so I started the application process, and when I got to the point where I needed to talk about how far I had gone with my business, I had not gone far in my business. As a matter of fact, I had only been able to rent my device to just maybe not more than 2 or 3 hospitals. I think that one of the things that would have made me, so I'm not going to brag about how amazing my business was, because we weren't making any money at the time. We were not making money. All we had at that time was potential impact and the innovative idea behind what we were doing. Those 2 things were what we had. We didn't have track record from the past. we just had great potentials. So one of the things I would say is some of you may be working in gray areas where nobody has worked on, and you feel alone in your field. There's nobody to look around and say, oh, let me copy what this person is, or let me take ideas from what this person is doing, or let me learn from this person, let me pick this person's brain. You may not have any of such people. That was my situation when I started. And when I applied, I actually had, so because of my lack of confidence in my application at that time, because I was wondering, how do people even when I'm not applying for an opportunity or a process, one thing usually happens when I walk into a room and introduce my business or what I tell people I do. There's always a negative or a turn down. There was all, because it was just it was weird that somebody was producing a medical device in Nigeria and not in Lagos or in Abuja or the famous cities, but in Bayelsa, a place that is very unusual, a very unusual place to actually start such a a business or an organization from, or a device or an innovation from. So I went through the corridors of all the people I knew who had applied for the opportunity and had gotten it. I had Grace in my corner. I went to other some fellows assisted, some fellows were really busy, some fellows had live programs. I think we had one or two fellows who had live programs where I also listened. So I gathered all of this information. I put them together. Not literally put them together in my head. And one of the things I did was I made sure that all the information I got from these programs didn't overwhelm me. You may be listening here and you probably have attended other platforms where other fellows have talked about their experience, and I've talked about it on my social media pages, that sometimes when you hear and listen to a lot of people telling you about how to apply, you get overwhelmed with a lot of information and you just don't know what to do when you're done with these programs. So here's what you can do. Please think about the areas that make you strong. For me, I thought and I put out only the areas that made us strong. I talked about how innovative the idea is, the potential impact, the problem I was solving, the potential impact I would have on my community when I'm back. Even when they asked me questions about my previous experience in leadership, the stories and the experiences I put out there were the experiences that made me like the hero of the story. I didn't put usual experiences or usual stories or usual things that had happened in my life. I thought about my biggest wins. I talked about my biggest moments, because honestly, nobody wants people who do usual things are hardly selected. And if you do usual things, you have to find a place where you are better than all of the people who do exactly what you're doing. As somebody who applied in the business and entrepreneurship sector of the Mandela Washington Fellowship, there were people who were also in business who were turning over millions of naira at the time I applied. They were turning over millions of naira every month, every year. And I was intimidated at that time. But one of the things I did was, since I'm not turning over in millions, what I can do is I can talk about the potential possibility of me turning over lives in millions, meaning I can save babies. I may not be making all the money, but I can save babies. I can build innovations. I can save babies who don't have access to this. So I don't know what aspect you are applying for this particular program in, but whatever area you're focusing on, ensure that you leverage your own strengths. Don't be intimidated by the strengths of other people. Like, I'm talking about innovation here, and you are probably running a food business. Honestly, you don't need to compare your story with mine, because everybody's story is unique. Even if you're running a food business or you're running a charity and you're solving other problems, you're doing other things, you're working in the public management space, please do not ever be intimidated by the stories and strengths of other people. Think about yours. Think about the experiences you've had in life that have triggered you to feel worthy of the Mandela Washington Fellowship program. Think about the things you've gone through, both negative, positive, challenging, and try to connect them to your application, because honestly, it's the strength of your application, the strength of your story that will determine how strong your application will be. And the last thing I'll tell you here is your supporting documents. Even when you write the best stories, you write your application, you write everything good in storytelling, your supporting documents are very crucial. What's the information you have put in those documents to make your story concrete? Because sometimes you tell stories and when they look at your supporting documents, it's not reflecting all the things that you have said in your application. You get a markdown. It makes you look like a liar. So when you're telling your story, bring up those documents that make your story concrete, that concretize your story, that it's like putting up proof of all the stories you have told. So if you want to have very good points and be selected for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, please tell the strong parts of your story, be vulnerable and become strong in the end. Your supporting documents, make sure it's in compliance. Compliance is a very big issue. I did something about compliance and fundraising today, and it's so it's so sensitive that a lot of people actually overlook the importance of complying to the instruction or complying to the kind of supporting documents that they ask you for. Mandela Washington Fellowship doesn't tell you the exact supporting document that they need from you in some of the applications or in most of the applications. It's you that has to use your IQ. Think about what you put in your application and what kind of supporting documents can help you. I mean, they've put character counts. You don't have the opportunity to talk too much in your application. So in the past that you have not been able to talk too much, please connect supporting documents that can give your story more strength, that can give your story more flesh. And eventually, when you get selected for the Mandela Washington program, remember to take good advantage of it. If I had the chance to become a Mandela Washington Fellow again, I would leverage it to become a bigger and a better person than I am. We have social media now. We have networks that can strengthen your abilities. Just take advantage of the entire program, and I wish you all the best. Thanks very much, Grace.
Thank you so much, Virtue. I always like to listen to you because there's always, something new to learn. I'm sure one of the things that many people here resonate with is the fact that your work is in a gray area. It's in an unusual sector, and it's something that has not been done before. I mean, prior to the time that you apply for the fellowship. But what I want you to just take 30 seconds to share with us right now is what you had to show or prove in your application that convinced the reviewers that this idea you have put forward, you can actually do it. Because I think that part is very important. So we don't have people going to just pitch ideas, right? But have no track record or history of leadership or taking initiative or solving problems enough to the point where the reviewers will believe that when you come for the fellowship, you would actually go back home and start to work on that idea.
So you're asking what I put out?
Yes, I'm sure you had because you did mention that you talked about your biggest wins, your biggest moments. So that's your track record, right? There were things you did in the past that were convincing enough for people to know that this idea you have for Kribaglo is actually workable and you're going to make it happen.
So I will start from being the only person in the room. Being the only person in the room meant that I was the only person doing what I was doing at the time. There were no other persons who were doing exactly what I was doing. And that first made me different. So what I had to do was sure that I emphasized on the potential I had to do a lot more work. So for the Mandela Washington Fellowship application, I made sure that I didn't talk too much about traveling. I leveraged on my vulnerability of people not believing what I was doing at that time, even though I had great potentials. I talked about, Grace, you're telling me to talk about the strengths I had. My strength was actually my vulnerability. I leveraged on that vulnerability and the downside of the business I was running at the time that, look, people are not willing to listen to me. I'm not I'm not getting the validation I need at this time. But and the reason is because people don't believe that what I'm doing is valid enough. So if I get into the Mandela Washington Fellowship, I'll have better platforms that will validate my work, and I'll have the opportunity to grow from there. So when I got accepted for the interview, that was one of the things I mentioned. And the interviewer was just shaking his head like, oh my God. So you mean that if you become a Mandela Washington Fellow, you mean that you get more validation? I said, yes. If people see that I've gone to America and come back, they see me in an American school, they see me going through entrepreneurial programs, they see Kribaglo there, why won't my work be validated? It will be validated. And he said, you know what, I'm giving it to you. And I knew I was going to be selected from the interview. You're muted.
Thank you for sharing that. And of course, you also mentioned that you were already running Tiny Hats Foundation. You founded this foundation in 2016, 2 years before the Mandela Washington.
Yeah.
So you're doing something.
Yes,
you just came up as a newbie and you had this idea. And so they knew that you were on track and they gave you this opportunity, you would fly with it. Thank you so much for sharing, Virtue. Just one more question someone had, but I thought that we could just handle it here. What are examples of those supporting documents that people should include? If you don't take anything out from, because a lot of people have gone to almost the final stage of the applications and they were just waiting for this live session to happen before they hit the submit button. So what are examples? I know that we need to think about it, in terms of the kind of work we do and what is relevant to the work and the story that we have shared. But what are examples of some of those supporting documents?
Okay, so a typical example of your supporting documents can be, this is so unusual. It can be a photo splash of a project you have embarked on, a collection of pictures and story and captions under each picture in one document. First put it on Microsoft Word, put it in PDF, but you'd have put, so it just be organized. That's it. If you don't have so many supporting documents, this can be one thing. It's a proof that you've embarked on a project. Arrange your pictures of how you embarked on a project. Put the caption under each of the pictures. Virtue at the Federal Medical Center, Yenegua. Virtue having a product demonstration. Virtue at the food exhibition center, exhibiting her food, my food, this and that. Put it there, the time, the date and the year, put it there. You can title it a collection of projects I've embarked on, or a collection of my milestones. You're telling me, and that's a supporting document. Another supporting document can be a letter of recommendation from a credible organization that you have worked with. It can be a letter of recommendation or a reference letter from somebody who is well known in their fields, in their space. Letters of recommendation are actually not something to look down on. I used a letter of recommendation from somebody at the World Bank and I got selected. She knew my work. She talked about my work. She talked about who she was. And she talked about the potential impact I had on my community, and I submitted it. It was there. Another, please don't overwhelm yourself with pitch decks. You may not need a pitch deck for Mandela Washington Fellowship. You're demonstrating leadership. You don't necessarily have to break your head up. It's not a grant. It's not investment. It's a fellowship program. Don't think too much about pitch decks. Even though a pitch deck might help you, a PowerPoint presentation might also help you, but it might be too much. Don't attach bulky supporting documents. As succinct and precise as possible. 1-pager, 2-pager at most, and that's
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have 1 or 2 more questions, so please give us some time to hear from the other speakers. Thank you again, Virtue. All right, this is getting really, really hot. So right now I'm going to welcome Oye. Oye is a 2018 Mandela Washington Fellow. Oye, please confirm to us what track you were selected into, and then share your story. Tell us that anything you believe stood you out, and of course, inspire our people today to apply.
Oh, okay. So I was selected for the public track, right? But it's crazy that when I go back, I swung fully into business. A lot of people ask, like, what would the Mandela Washington Fellowship do for you? The truth is, it would just help to give you further clarity. For virtue, it helped her to, just get that credibility she needed in her work. But I think one thing, I'll just go straight to the point. I think I would just focus on points that I feel might be important in this call. The first thing I'll say is, no matter what happens, give it your best shot and apply. I repeat, no matter what happens, even when you don't feel like, oh, I have compared to what other people are submitting, I have a better application. Please just give it your best try. I can recall that I didn't want to apply in 2018 when my sister sent me the link. She was like, oh yeah, all these things that you're doing, going to rural communities to try and figure out how, people are evading tax, because they're in rural communities and basically they're carrying truckloads of crops out and processing in Nigeria, but they are going in the night to evade tax. So I would dress as a student. I was a government worker and I would dress as a student to go and carry out those types of research. We had crazy research carried out that, of course, the government, of course, didn't publish, but it was just an interesting conversation. Another thing I'll say is get people that review applications to help review yours. After you finish putting up your great application, get people that review application. Another thing I can give you for free is you can use Grammarly. Grammarly is your friend. I would repeat, Grammarly is your friend, especially in this generation. Use Grammarly. I would say that one of the few things that people overlook is the fact that the people that are reading are really reading fast. So it's not like everybody wants to stay and try and understand what you are saying from a perspective of your African perspective. So try and use Grammarly. They have AI. I'm not saying AI should answer your questions. I'm only saying that they have like AI that can assist in making sure that there is correctness in your line of speech and everything. Another thing you need to take note is be honest with your story. No story is too little to be told. I can't overemphasize that. Be honest about it. Don't exaggerate, right? Then another thing is watch the figures. Please don't exaggerate. Another thing I say is watch the figures. A lot of times I had the privilege to review in one of the years some people from, I think, Ethiopia. And every time I see that somebody says, oh, his work has touched 2 million lives, I'll just quickly go on social media to check, right? And I realized that many of these guys are just forming these figures. They really have not touched 2 million lives. If your work has touched 10, youths, amplify that 10. Be confident about that 10. Talk about what in the future you're planning to achieve and what you're planning to do. Then also remember that reviewers for the first stage might be fellows. So also think about that. How would they read your work? They are not distant from anything that is happening in Africa. So you can't just form figures and facts. Then, of course, a compelling factual story is a secret sauce any day, any application, anywhere you go. A compelling factual story for me. I always put factual because eventually you shouldn't look at Mandela Washington as the end goal. Mandela Washington is just a platform that can help amplify your work, but it's not the end goal, So I think if you are really here on this call, the end goal should be impacting people, impacting communities, and changing humanity. If that's really the reason why you're applying, then cheers to you. Then really read and internalize. Before you answer the question, ask yourself, is this really a great answer? So they're asking about your professional background and pretty much you are just, going off. I've had the privilege to sit on several interviews. And when I sit on several interviews, you ask one question, and the person thinks she's answering the question, or he is answering the question, and really you've gone off. So you have that one opportunity after you see the questions, internalize, then think, is this the best representation or is this the best response I can give to this question? That is really important. Then when you get your interview phase, maybe 2 more points, then tell a holistic, story. Tell a holistic matching story. Let's look at your whole application, does it really match? Here you're talking about this, here you're talking about that, bring it all together. Make sure it's well looped, make sure it's well connecting, make sure it makes sense, make sure it's something that is enjoyable to read. For those that are researchers, you have you know this, like when you're drafting a report, it has to, be in line, and it has to, it has to be like that, that unity of the idea, so please make sure that when you're applying, you're thinking about that. Then one last thing I'll say is, you can never fail. If you try, you can only learn. I know there's a lot of tension, I know there's a lot of things that people are thinking about when they're applying for this, but really, really, you need to really relax and apply. That's as much as you can, do. Then for the interview, I will just leave some, for those that are getting the interview, I will just leave some tips for you. 1, prepare. 2, look the part. I do not, joke with that. You look the part when you're going for the interview. I can remember when I had my interview, when I walked in, I could literally see the stare on their faces, like, I was like fully suited up. And, I had the charisma and confidence to answer most of the questions. Then, of course, be confident, but be respectful. Be confident, but be respectful. So that's important. Then, of course, your gesticulations, go and look at, TEDx talks, look at how people answer questions in different interviews. If you can get videos, especially when you get to that interview stage, then of course, maintain good eye contact. I'm not saying you open your eyes and you're staring at the people interviewing you like 24/7, or maybe you just isolate somebody. But I'm talking about, you making sure that you're maintaining decent eye contact around the room. And that's something that, was helpful during my time. Then if you have questions after the interview, ask questions. Of course, ask meaningful questions and learn how to handle tension. For me, usually I just need to first start speaking, then everything else flows, right? So these are some of the things I would leave with you as regards, the fellowship. I know a lot of you will be thinking like, oh, what if they don't select me? What if I'm not chosen? The truth is, it's highly competitive. But my advice to you is to look at it as an opportunity to present your work. Look at it as, this application is a TEDx talk. I'm just getting on stage and I'm just presenting what I'm doing. Yes, if you are chosen, then you can also prepare for the interview phase, which is even more nerve-wracking. But, look at it as an opportunity to be authentic. Please be authentic. Please do not, falsify information that's not, but also look for a way to best amplify your stories and amplify your impact. With these few points of mine, I hope it was helpful to you for your application, and I hope you do win this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oye. Thank you for sharing those power tips. I wasn't going to have enough time to go over them, but you did such a wonderful job. Thank you for also reiterating that the Mandela Washington Fellowship actually will give clarity. It's that platform that will give you clarity to the work you're doing and to the strategy we're using to solve the problems we're solving. I personally got that clarity for my work through the fellowship. So I was so happy to hear you say that. And something else that stuck for me was where you said, don't fabricate figures. And this is for everybody who is watching. Please don't lie about the number of people. If you've attended any of my previous sessions, you see that you will know that I continue to emphasize this point. If you're going to quantify your achievements, it is better that you say you reached 10 people and you can show us how you transform the lives of 10 people, than that you say you have reached 1,000 people and we can't measure the impact of the work you did with them. So don't fabricate numbers. If you do so, you're going to be caught. Yes, I've been on a fellowship program and somebody who was a fellow was caught because they couldn't defend what they said in the application while we were on the fellowship program. So you always need to lie to cover up the lie you told it before. So if you're not ready to do that, you better stop. Thank you so much, Oye. We have a couple of questions, but I'll take them after. So the last speaker, because of technical issues, got kicked out of this platform. So please stay on the screen. I'll bring the other speakers back on board. Mahfouz, Virtue, please come back on board. Let's take a few questions. Thank you very much. So if you have your questions, please ask them now while I project the earlier ones that were asked. So someone says, when selecting the best, do you have a target number per country, or you simply select the ones successful regardless of how many you take per country? So we are not the ones doing the selection, but let's assume he's asking this question to the reviewers. Who wants to go?
Okay, maybe I should go first and use the latest experience. I think you guys are. So, yeah, so in our own sets, we had about 10,262 applicants from Nigeria. So I'm using Nigeria as a case study. And obviously, Nigeria used to be the highest applicant. So Nigeria used to have the highest applicant. So, and then only 57 was selected. I think before now it used to be 100, and so before it was cut to, maybe 50, and then now we have 57 from Nigeria. So we can't really say this is the percentage, but I know that there's always a quota that they can't pass through that quota, and then and I think after Nigeria, the other country that was the highest was Kenya. So Kenya was maybe 49, because I had some Kenyans from my institute. So, and maybe Ethiopia. So, and then the rest maybe 10, 15, depending on the country. But Nigeria used to have the highest. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So there's quota for each country. And I don't know how the final selection is made. These things can change. So just put your best foot forward and hope that you get selected. So we have another question here. Must you have an ongoing project to be qualified for application? I know Virtue touched on this a little bit, but does anybody want to share or provide more insights? Yes, Oye.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was muted. For me, I would say that I kind of feel like people really don't define what a project is well from the onset. So even if you are cleaning your neighborhood, right? Are you cleaning for a purpose? Maybe for climate change, maybe for something that is important to you. What's that reason? If you're training girls on the street, somebody was telling me, and she was like, "Oh, I've never volunteered." And I was like, "Oh, so what do you do all those Sundays you're in church? They pay you, you are standing, you're getting people into church, And she was like, "How is that?" I was like, "Do they pay you for that? Why do you do that?" She was like, "Oh, she wants people to have a great experience, blah, 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 blah." So, you need to look in your life and ask yourself some of the things that you do from, that beautiful part. I call it the inner light in you, right? Is it helping people in some way, right? I always strongly feel that there's something that we are doing or we are interested in that we can all just wrap into maybe a project or something that is of importance that can impact humanity. But one other thing I'll also loop in is, and this is something that every time I see Grace, I'm always smiling, because I literally went for with the public track. So my track, I'm always very, like, people are always very confused. They're like, "Oh, yeah, how are you a businessman? You came back." And the story is simple. I came back and I wanted to do NGO stuff, humanitarian stuff. When I saw the amount of money needed, I was like, nah, it's a social enterprise for me. I'm going to look for money. So I would say that, I go back and I started a business that has grown to where it is right now. But I did not go with that business there. So that clarity, but be clear about, maybe some of the community things that you're doing, and put up a good application around that. I'm almost sure there's some SDG that you can tie it to. I'm almost certain.
Yeah, thank you. I think that answers the question. So because of time, I'll go to the next one. Could you tell us about selection of tracks? I am a social entrepreneur, but I am also a co-founder of a nonprofit that works with the youth and women on issues of GBV mentorship and curbing joblessness. So I'm not sure what Christine means, because we've talked about the 3 tracks. But is anybody who wants to give a brief response to this question?
Grace, let me jump on that.
Yes.
Virtue. So I find that a lot of people we are doing different things, right? You're doing a lot of things. Which one sells you the most? Which one makes you a better? Which one projects you the most? Which one makes you a stronger person? Which one are you best at? Because it's not a time to sell yourself short. So choose the area or the aspect in which you're best at. If it's social entrepreneurship, that's the civic track, go for it. If you're best at business and entrepreneurship, please go for it. And remember to stay focused on that line. Don't talk about the other things. Don't beat about the bush. Don't be tempted to talk about all the things that you do. You need to remain focused on that track and remain at the track record you have laid in that particular track. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I think I was in Christine's shoe as well when I was applying, and I'm a social entrepreneur, and then I also run a nonprofit. So I was a bit confused. Should I go for business or should I go for civic engagement? And then I looked back at my experiences over like 7 years at the time, and everything was tied around community service, volunteering, and things like that. So I was advised to apply under the civic engagement track just because I had more results in that area and I could share more stories there than the social entrepreneurship track at the time. So, Kristen, if that answers your question, think about where you have more impact, where you can prove that you've had some leadership experience and you have results. Apply in that track. Who says that you have to remain there? Just like Oye, you can come back and, of course, switch, do something else, right? Because the Mandela Washington Fellowship is not an end in itself; it's a means to an end. But first of all, to get in, you have to be able to tell your story and put forward your strong points. So thank you again, Betty, for answering that. We have another very brief question for Mahfouz. Did your work have a social media presence? Florence wants to know.
Yeah, so it does. It does have social media presence. Of course, we've been on the news, publications, The Guardian, The Nation, sharing some of our projects and all that. So it does have a social media presence. And for me, I don't really think that you should hammer on maybe your project should have a social media presence. Just make sure you have an impact, and there is a way you can show for it. So for instance, there's a lady from Ghana. So the lady was actually a trained nurse, but she had a challenge of when you have people who are deaf people coming to the hospital for treatment. There's nobody to interact with them. So this lady had to take the pain to go and learn about sign language. And then, so most times, if you have deaf people coming to the hospital, she is the one that, interact with them and all that. And that was what she used in applying. Obviously, she can't put that in the social media, or there's nobody that even knows about it, aside from people in the community. So she was one of those that are the people that nobody has been celebrating over time. She's not got any award. She's not got anything about it. In fact, when we got to the fellowship, she was just like, "What are you guys doing?" She was surprised. So she just applied, and just like what somebody said, just give it a shot. So you never can tell. But I can tell you that she's one of the heroes we celebrated in my institute, because you can't imagine that she was a trained nurse, but she had to go extra mile to learn about sign language to support people who are deaf, who are the deaf community. It's just like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we have another question. Thank you very much for answering that. We have another question that says, can we share more light on professional? What do these people mean by professional experience? Somebody wants to know. This same person runs a non-profit organization that advocates for quality education for slum kids. And she earlier asked about how she can share her story, but I didn't project that because we've already answered it. So now she's wondering, what do we mean by professional experience? Yes, who wants to touch on that?
So for me,
Okay.
okay, go.
No, please go ahead. Please go ahead, Mahmood. Thank you.
Okay, so for me, I used to think that is just like when you said you are going for an IT, because of course you'll be posted to an institution or an organization in the US. You are going to work directly with them, and so they share their experience with you. And of course, it's going to be the organization you'll be posted to will be an organization that has a similar thing to what you do. For instance, I run a prison education project, so I'll be posted to an organization that does similar things so that I can learn firsthand of how they run the project and all that. And also it's just like, to me, I understand it as like doing an IT to understand better how to run the organization in the US. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. I know that the professional development experience is optional, and this is quite different from what is in the selection criteria for the fellowship itself, that's asking people to demonstrate professional experience. So yes, that's part of it, Mafus. Thank you for sharing. Vechi, did you want to add
Sorry,
something?
can I add something?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so recently there is going to be an opportunity for a lot of people to actually, initially it used to be by short quota. So they
Okay.
used to have maybe 100 from all the countries, but now you can actually do a virtual of it. So for our cohorts now, they've applied for the virtual and they'll be selected. And then even for those who were selected too, can also have an extension of the virtual. So I think they are trying to give more opportunity to people to
Okay.
have the opportunity of the virtual
Okay.
yeah, unlike what we have before. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's for the professional development experience.
Yes, yes,
All right.
yes.
Thank you. Vechi, did you want to add something before we move on? We can take like 2 or 3 more questions and then we call it a day.
I also think that people will be tempted to answer that question at all costs. If you think that you cannot answer that question or you're not qualified for the professional development experience, just move on and finish your application without selecting that option. I didn't bother myself with it because I thought it was over for me.
Yeah, for me, I also didn't pick that option, but I'm sure
Yeah.
there are people who would like to have that experience of working in professional capacities for organizations in the US. Okay, can someone under 25 years apply? Oh yeah, do you know about this? Any experiences with someone who was under 25 who got into the fellowship program?
I think so. I also believe that Grace read the guideline at the beginning, but you can always check.
Yeah.
It's been such a long while since I applied, and to be frank, I think your application should just speak for you, right? I don't think the US is that society where they amplify a lot of things like age, sex, and all that. I just believe that you should be respectful of what you find there, because I'm sure when you're selected, you get other orientation, but your application should be excellent. I personally don't know what the age limits are right now, but it's something that should be online. But your application, please put out a strong application. That's what I'll just suggest to you.
Okay, thank you. So, but during my cohorts, we did have someone who was less than 25 years.
And I cohort too. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, we lost him.
Oh my God.
Saying it. Yeah, we lost him in the US 1 week after we arrived. We went on this sightseeing adventure in the mountains. We went hiking, and unfortunately, the waters took him, and we lost him. What's his name?
I remember they told us.
But he was such a brilliant young person, so brilliant. We kept asking him, "How did you get selected at 23?" I think he was 23 at the time he was selected, and he had achieved so much. He just proved himself, gave it a shot, and he was selected. So yes, definitely you can try for the Mandela. I know that there are people who are less than 25 years who are, even if someone else I met from Kenya was younger than 25 years and he was selected. So do give it a shot if you're in that category. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so sorry. I had to respond to a message when they mentioned social media, because we are saying apply even if you don't have it. So if you also have a very good social media, right, please use it to your advantage. I can't tell you the people I have met on LinkedIn, right? So if you have a great social media, please use it to your advantage. I just wanted to tip in that in case somebody's like, oh, they ain't going to check.
Mm.
Just
Yeah.
verify.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would like you to take this question and the next one I'm going to project because it's directed at you. So it says, what if you are comfortable as an employee, but just a seasonal volunteer? And someone says, oh yeah, you talked about volunteering and the ushering stuff. Say more about this.
Okay, great. It's good to know that we were listening. So if you're an employee and you volunteer, that's fine. I mean, you can choose which you would want to amplify, or if your volunteer work is in line with where you work, then you can just put the whole story holistically together. But if you're like, oh, an employee and maybe your work is different from volunteering, just focus on one, as Virtue said, just focus and amplify that work. Then I'll also focus on I also go I'm sure this is a she, yeah. She's asking about ushering and everything. So maybe think about it in terms of mental health. Think about it in terms of when people have a great experience, quality of their well-being or something like that. You need to figure out like, how you can wrap that story or wrap that thing that you regularly do, because it's something that you regularly do. I know some religious organizations that have like twice in a week, people are standing, creating that environment, sweeping the floors, moving chairs and all that. So think about, you serving people and helping them to have like, maybe a better experience of maybe spirituality, mental health or something like that. But I'm almost sure there should be a way in which you can wrap the number of hours you spend, in organizations like that as some concrete metrics that you can present that will be meaningful and show your consistency, also to that cause, So yeah, that's one way I would have, because even when I volunteered back then in university, I did not know I was volunteering. I trained. I'm back then in university. I mentored over 120 people for 4 years, like 30 people this year, 30. And then I did not, I was just doing it. I just knew that people should not be hungry. So I was just trying to get a lot of people trained, equipped. It was later on I realized that, oh wow, okay, I have something I have done in the past that I put into a story about providing economic training and job opportunity or job readiness for youths and all that. So I'm almost sure you should be able to figure out some SDG you can link that to. Okay.
Okay, so we have just this question and then one more question. Someone is asking if his acceptance into Yali RLC can boost his opportunity to get into Mandela Washington Fellowship. But before you answer that, thank you, Oye, for taking your time to explain. I'm sure that those who have volunteering experiences can definitely learn how to share their story. This is why you should take courses. Virtue has a training program for people who want to learn how to tell their stories better so that they can attract funding opportunities. But some of you will hear about her training and you will not want to attend, right? I have a masterclass where I have taught people how to navigate questions that are asked during the Mandela Washington Fellowship. A couple of them have reached out and I can see that they've done a good job writing their essays because of what I taught them. So when you see some of these training programs, enroll so that you can learn how to, tell your stories, how you can turn that volunteering experience into something that can qualify you for fellowships like this. Okay, so David is asking this question now. Tell us. I know it's a tricky one, but just because he was selected into the Yali RLC, does that mean that he would automatically, or would it boost his chances of getting selected into the fellowship? I think you're muted. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you can speak on Virtue.
Okay. Did anyone want to answer that question first, so I can?
No, go on. Go.
And let the person. Okay, yeah. Just 2 sentences. You're already in the Yali RLC. That should make you understand what is required of the Mandela Washington Fellowship even better than any other person who hasn't got the yearly RLC, because it's also leadership, it's youth oriented. So that should boost the knowledge side of things, should boost your chances. But say you're a yearly RLC member and then they want to read your application twice. No, the person reading your application probably has no idea of where you're coming from and whether you're a yearly RLC person or not. If your application is not strong enough, you're not getting it. You being a yearly RLC has no impact on the possibility of your selection.
Yeah, thank you, Virtue. Did anyone else want to chip in on that? We have Blessing here. She's back on. So I'm going to give her some time to speak and then answer the last question. But does anyone have any other thing to add to that? No. Okay, so there's the last question here about do we need to describe every aspect as regards the certifications and professional experience? That's Victor's question. And someone is asking, she says she's a teacher, but she wants to start a fashion training program for female inmates in prison. Wow, that sounds like a brilliant idea to me. So do you think I can apply? The answer is yes, based on Virtue's story. But at this point, I just want to invite Blessing. She didn't have the chance to share, but let me say thank you to Oye, Virtue, Mahfouz. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing your story. I can let you go now, so feel free to jump off the call if you have other things to attend to. Thank you so much. Blessing, you're welcome.
Hi, and I apologize. I had network issues and I also had to quickly do something as well. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Grace, for this opportunity. I mean, it's been very good. I am a Mandela Washington Fellow or an alumni from 2023 set. Everybody has spoken a lot. I don't even think that whatever I want to say will be an addition, but I should just say this. I used to say that I usually would think that you have to be maybe a founder, a co-founder for you to get into the Mandela Washington Fellowship. But I mean, getting into the Mandela Washington Fellowship for me proved otherwise. I do not run an organization. Rather, I work with organizations. My service includes I'm a programs manager, and as I try as much as possible to use the knowledge and skills I have to empower people. That's what I do basically. And so, what I would say stood out for me, and maybe that's one of the reasons, is that I have, at the time I was applying, the project I was applying for was currently across 15 African countries, and we had a target to reach 50,000 people. Well, maybe because of the portfolio of the organization and because I could directly speak to the work I do and my contribution towards that particular project, I would say that's one of the things that helped me to probably get in. That was my fifth application, and I got in on the fifth time. In the first application, which was like in 2018, I put in an application around SRHR. At that time, I was volunteering with UNFPA, and I went ahead continuously. I got into the interview stage in 2020, and then I didn't get through after that. And then I got into this interview stage again, and then I got selected, got into the interview, and then I was selected eventually. One thing I would say that helped me as well is that I had grown. I was confident enough at that part. Okay. So one thing I would say that has helped me was that I had grown. I was confident enough at the time I was putting in my application this time. I think it was even evident even in my interview, because during my interview, the people who were interviewing me, they were asking plenty of questions I couldn't even read, but I was confident enough. I was bold enough. I knew I deserved that spot. And I think that that's one of the things that MWF wants. You are confident enough, you are a leader. Nobody, don't want people that are just trying to probably start. You can start, but it's just very important that you are confident enough and you know what you want. So that was one of the things that I was able to show in my application. I was confident enough. I knew what I wanted. Even though I was a volunteer, even though I was not a founder, I was working on the programs team. I spoke from the place of numbers. I spoke from the place of my contribution on the team, how the team was able to reach the countries that we're able to reach, how we are providing access to digital skills for women and girls across 15 African countries, how we are bridging the digital divide, how we are providing job opportunities for women and girls for free. And so I think that that was one of the things that helped me. Another thing that helped me during my interview, I mean, I didn't see that coming, was I put in the supporting documents. I requested for a document from UNFPA in 2018 for a project I had done. So the document was actually dated 2018, but I put it in my application in 2022. And I was shocked that, because initially when I was going to upload as a supporting document, I was like, wouldn't they say that the date is backdated? But I was shocked that during my interviewer kept asking me, how did you work in UNFPA? You put in, your letter came in from a particular name. How did you know this person? And then I just realized that somehow, the person had probably worked with this person before, So imagine if I had lied, imagine if I had made up the document, it probably would have disqualified me automatically, because I know that's some of the mistakes some people make. You feel like because you have the logo of this organization, you just want to go online, take their logo, create a supporting document for yourself or a recommendation letter. But I used that particular recommendation letter, and that person asked me a question, and how do you know this person? I said it. And even when I was still speaking from a standpoint of, oh, I know this fellow, I've worked with this fellow, I've worked with this alumni, and they were like, how do you know this person? So I was able to speak from that standpoint. So one thing I advise, do not lie in your application. If you get in, you get in. In my set, like my last experience, there were some people who were just starting their organization, but they got into the program. So don't lie about it. If you will get in, you will get in. Make sure that your figures and your statistics are very correct. That helped a whole lot for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Blessing. Yeah, you touched on so many things that we didn't. In fact, there's a question someone asked about submitting a supporting document that was dated in 2020. And so you have just answered that question. As long as that document is still valid and is still applicable to the present application, of course, why not? You can use it, right? So thank you so much for sharing your story. Someone is asking if it's possible to have brilliant essays and still not get selected. Yes, but thank you. Yeah, Blessing, you wanted to touch on that?
I said, of course. One of the guys that was selected he's a Nigerian. He kept saying that he has applied 4 times, and all the 4 times he got to the interview. So the essay was never the problem for him. The problem he had was the interview. So yes, you can have brilliant essays. And please, at this time, let me say this: there's ChatGPT. Don't be tempted to use ChatGPT. And I don't know. ChatGPT is great, but trust me, they would know. ChatGPT does not have emotion. So while we are writing your application, review it. You can use it to construct sentences, but please review it. Put your time to it. You can have beautiful essay and not get selected. If you are in Nigeria, the competition is massive. The competition is a lot. And pray. Very important. The God factor is key. Pray.
Thank you, Blessing. You've said it all. Yes, so you can apply, but you will not get selected because it's such a competitive process. And there's so many other factors that can result in you not being selected. For example, it could even be your region, right? They can't select if a country has a quota of, say, 20 people, right? They can't select all 20 people from one city. They want to go across, maybe 1 from this city, 2 from this city, 3 from this city. So if you're not selected, it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It's just, we need to diversify. So thank you so much, Blessing. It was good to have you. I'll just wrap up with my last slide. Yes, just to share this with, oh no, this is the wrong slide. I have the wrong slide up. All right. So everyone has spoken so well. Everyone has shared their tips and their tricks. And I just wanted to touch on the interviews because I know some of you are waiting for that. Unfortunately, my slide isn't showing up really well, but I want you to pay attention to some of the things I'm going to share right now. The first tip, I got a couple of Yali fellows to come together to share tips that helped them ace the interview process. For me, one of the things was getting ready with my elevator pitch. So I had written down what my pitch would look like for questions like, tell us about yourself. Who are you? So while I did not rehearse any particular paragraph to say, but I knew the key words that I wanted to use and the key experiences I wanted to feature when I am answering that questions. So if they're asking you to tell them a little bit about what you do, this is not a point where you just say one line or two about yourself and the work you do. So if you're asked, you want to go beyond that to talk about the initiatives that you've been involved with, the things you shared already in your application, and how that connects to your passion or your interest in the fellowship, right? So I would say get your elevator pitch ready. Be ready with it so that it can come naturally during the interview process. The second tip is to be natural and show passion and enthusiasm for your work. If you listen to what Blessing just said, she's saying don't rely on AI tools to generate your essays. Please don't do that. A lot of people are doing that now, and it's not the best, right? Write it as it's coming from your heart. When someone reads it, they can tell that this is coming from you. They can tell that you wrote this from a place of excitement, from a place of passion and enthusiasm for the work you're doing. And it wasn't some structured sentences from ChatGPT or other AI tools. So be natural. And then during your interview, of course, don't speak that way either. Speak from your heart. Show them that you know what you're talking about. You are the one who is involved. You are at the center of your story. You've done this work, and this is why you should be selected for the fellowship program. So you don't want to sound like you are under pressure, or like you are lying, or like it's something, maybe you were part of something, but you were just an observer. You don't want to sound that way. You want to sound like you were an active part of something. And you don't also want to fake accents, right? Because you don't know who might be interviewing you, but you don't want to show them a fake side of you. You just want to be your natural, authentic self. Another tip that was shared by Anne Eboso from Kenya, she said, don't be modest. She said, present. Can everybody see me? I want to believe everyone can see me. She says, don't be modest. Present your organization highly and project the impact that your work does to the community. Also indicate clearly why being selected as a fellow will amplify your activities and create more positive impact. So don't be modest. Blow your horn. This is your chance to blow your horn and let them know the impact of the work you have done. Another tip came from Juby Peacock from Botswana. She says, think about what you will contribute. And when you're preparing for your MWF interview, she said when preparing for her interview, she said she thought a lot about the Juby brand. Her name is Juby, but she thought about herself as a brand and what she has to offer as an individual. And she also thought about how her project was set her apart from other applicants and what is unique about her and the impact of the work she has done. She read about current affairs and to determine how she was doing related to the bigger picture of what is happening in her country. So imagine that you don't know what is happening in your country's political landscape or in your country's economic landscape, social landscape, environmental landscape. Find out, be abreast with it so that if any question comes or if any conversation tries to delve into those aspects, you will not be dumbfounded. Another tip that was shared, which is the 5th tip for your interview, is to be consistent with your story. This came from Samuel Shegun from Nigeria. He said, when they ask you to tell them what you've done, they are asking based on what you have written. So don't come up with another gist. This is not the time to get excited and share stories of all the old projects and new projects you're working on. Stick to one story, be consistent with it. And I agree with him. The 6th tip says, listen more. And this came from Levit Nudi from Kenya. He says, listen more. So during your interview, you want to talk less and listen more. And we're not saying talk less as per only give them one sentence answers. No, we're saying don't be too quick to start responding and don't cut in or interrupt your interviewer. There's no amount of accomplishment that can guarantee you an opportunity such as the fellowship, but people listen to people who listen. Yes, if you are ready to become a change maker, listening more, especially in an interview, helps you relax and gain confidence. You avoid simple mistakes people make when they talk too much. And in listening, your message is simple, that you don't have it all figured out, but you are ready to learn and apply, and that's more like it. That was what he shared. The 7th tip out of 10 tips I'm sharing today came from Emeka Osai from Nigeria. He says, know what you are doing and how it applies to the bigger picture. How is your work helping you take leadership to solve a larger challenge? For example, if you're a teacher, a farmer, or a nurse, how does your work contribute to solving a global challenge? Remember that Oye talked about looking at these sustainable development goals, right? This is me taking a break to tell you this. He talked about the sustainable development goals. How does your work tie to one of these sustainable development goals? How does your work contribute to solving a global challenge? And Emeka says, what are the outcomes that you already have and the outcomes that you anticipate? Remember Virtue. Virtue spoke about the outcomes she anticipated. For some of you, you already have some outcomes. Talk about it, but also talk about your future goals, what you're planning or what you're anticipating would happen in the future as a result of the fellowship. Because the fellowship is an investment. It's an investment in your professional development. So they want to know what the outcome of that investment will be. Be bold to let them know how you reach more people and how you make more impact. The 8th tip is to be on time. So somebody was saying village people, calling village people in the chat section. And it's true, village people can show up. They can show up in form of traffic delay. They can show up in any form. So don't let them. Prepare to be on time, whether it's a virtual interview or a physical interview, prepare to show up at least 10 to 15 minutes before the time so that you are now fully prepared and you don't want to screw up everything by arriving late for your interview. The 9th one is from Victoria Ibiwoye from Nigeria. She says, be relaxed. Don't process too many things while you are there. Try to be present as much as possible and enjoy the moment. Finally, just as Blessing said, this tip came from me. I was going to tell you this, that you can't do all of this without praying, hoping, and believing. Don't underestimate the power of all of this, of praying, of keeping your hope alive, and believing that you can be selected at first attempt. You can be selected after 3 attempts. You can be selected in 2024. Keep saying those things to yourself. Write them down somewhere. Remember, always look at it. Always repeat it to yourself. Keep hoping, keep believing, and pray about it, and your chance will definitely come. So thank you very much, everyone, for staying put to the very end of today's live webinar. Do we have any more questions? I can take 2 more questions and then we call it a day. Someone has been asking if we can get application reviews from the speakers. Unfortunately, the speakers may not have the time to take or to conduct application reviews. But Oye has suggested using Grammarly. Grammarly is a tool that is very helpful for editing your essays. So use that tool and put your essays there. It will give you corrections and let you know what you should change or what you should add and things like that. And there might be other tools out there that can help you as well. But unfortunately, the speakers are not available to review applications. Okay, so on that note, somebody's asking about supporting documents. Where does it come in? So the supporting documents come when you have completed your application. When you have completed all the sections of the applications, you have to click on Generate PDF, I think so. So you click on Generate PDF, it takes you to the next page that asks you to upload optional documents. So it's optional, but that is the space. So you're not going to get to that page until you have completed the first section. I hope that answers your question in Igbo. Yes, thank you so much, Blessing, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. There's another question here by Abdul Aziz. Is it advisable to include a major achievement? Is it recommended to add a major achievement that is not related to your track? I don't think so. I mean, your achievements should relate to the story you've told and to that of course relates to the track, right? Otherwise it becomes confusing. How are you talking about this, but then you're telling us about this? So don't confuse your reviewers. And remember, the first stage of application reviews will be done by fellows. It will be done by Mandela Washington Fellows. Yes, so if I'm going to sign up as a reviewer, I will not be reviewing Nigerian applications. I'll be reviewing applications from other countries. So don't put information that would confuse someone like me. in another country, right? Let your achievements be related to the stories or to the track that you're applying to. I hope that answers your question. Oh, we do have a lot of questions. Wow. All right. I would stay and try to answer a few. Somi Wanda, thank you very much for your kind comments. I'm glad that you benefited. I can't wait to congratulate you when you get selected. Is the interview online? I don't know if the interview is going to be online, but anything can happen, right? During the COVID year, interviews were virtual, I believe. But prior to that time, and even after then, I think they have started to conduct in-person interviews. During my time in 2016, the interview was in person. So get ready. We don't know what 2024 will look like, but prepare for the in-person one or the virtual one, depending on what they decide to do. And in most cases, if it's in most cases, if it's an in-person interview, it would not be too far from where you live. It might be in the same city. You just have to take a transport down there. Okay, and someone is saying, can I connect? Oh yeah, surely you can connect with me at Grace Iheji. At Grace Iheji, I'll put it in the comment section. If your idea is at early stage, how can you show the impact? And should I focus on the long-term vision of the project in the application? So if you were here earlier, you would have heard Virtue when she shared her story. At the time she applied, her project idea was at early stage, right? And she just had this brilliant idea, innovation, but hadn't done so much or hadn't gotten so much traction. And she was able to share her long-term vision and show how the fellowship would help her achieve that. And that was what blew the minds of the interviewers, right? So show the potential impact, but also demonstrate your leadership capabilities, also demonstrate your experiences, taking initiative and doing something around that project or around that sector. Then provide a strong recommendation letter that can show that you actually have what it takes to make it happen. Don't just put out an idea at early stage without anything to back up or to support that you are actually capable of going to the US, taking all that you've learned and bringing them back to apply them and make that idea possible. So I hope that answers your question. We have another question that says, okay, I like this. So Wanjiru was watching from Kenya. Thank you. Even beyond MWF, this session was a life hack for sure. Thank you so much, Wanjiru. That's such a beautiful way to frame your experience during this webinar. I appreciate it. Is most of the work you do on social media? If most of the work you do is on social media, how do you show proven record? So I don't know what kind of work you're referring to, but if your work is online or social media based, then you need to prove your results in terms of numbers, screenshots that demonstrate those numbers. If you say you reached 10,000 people and 10,000 people signed up for something, you want to maybe share a snapshot of those 10,000 registrations. You also want to share a post you have shared on social media that showed people how that program went, the impact of the program, photos of you with the participants or photos of you delivering that service or whatever it is that you do. So there are so many ways to prove, to show your proven record if your project is social media based, right? There are people who use social media as advocacy tools, as a tool to advance their advocacy projects or campaigns. You want to be able to show your reach, the number of people you were able to reach, and how you are telling your story through your social media platforms, right? So get it right. Don't fabricate anything, but go back to your pages and see if you have those in place. And whether you prove anything or not, they will still check you out on social media. So make sure that you're putting out updates, useful updates, and that you're doing the right thing. That's what I would advise, Stanley. What if you are gearing towards helping people out? SDG 4, I believe SDG 4 is about education, and you also have a good background in volunteering, and they are your major strengths. I don't think I understand your question, Hope, but yeah, I think you're on point. You're helping people maybe provide access to quality education for them right? And you also have a good background in volunteering, and that's your major strength. So what are you volunteering for? Is it education related? What problem are you solving in the education sector? If you're able to tell that story and weave it in nicely, then you're good to go. Someone is wondering if a makeup artist can apply in the business track. Why not? Show us what problem you're solving. Remember what we said about tying what you're doing to a global challenge. That's one of the things that will stand you out. So there's so many makeup artists out there who are doing it for business and for profits, but what are you doing? What else are you doing it for? How is it going to help the next person? What problem, what social or environmental problem are you solving with that business? Right? Because we're talking about business for social good now, business with social value or impact. So you need to be able to demonstrate that beyond just being a regular makeup artist. What is making your artistry innovative? What makes it stand out? What makes it different? And what problem are you solving? If you can answer that question, then you can definitely apply in the business track. Okay, thank you very much, Miracle. Is there a general marking scheme for all reviewers? I wouldn't say a marking scheme, but there is a guide, right? There's a review guide that all reviewers have to use and follow when they're grading the applications. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. That would be it. Would call it a night. Someone is saying, must recommendation letters serve as supporting documents? And must those come from what? Oh, the recommendation letters, must they be specifically for MWF? Honestly, I would say if you're going to submit a recommendation letter, it should be specific to the fellowship, right? But then if you have something else from a very top level organization that may not be specific to the fellowship, but that shows that shows the kind of person you are and your approach to jobs or to programs like this, why not? Blessing did show a recommendation from a UN organization she had worked with in the past, and even though it wasn't related to Mandela Washington Fellowship, it went a long way to demonstrate her capability and her suitability for the fellowship. So if it's relevant, you can use it. But if it's not relevant, then get someone to write something more up to date for you. All right, everyone. Thank you again, and have a great night. And thank you also for joining this live. Do share this link with everyone. The replay will be available on Opportunity Desk YouTube channel. And see you again, maybe on another webinar. I also want to use this opportunity to say that my Go Global Masterclass, for those of you who missed the first batch of that masterclass in July, it's coming back again in October 2023. If you have not registered, please do so. The investment cost is so minimal, it's affordable, and I have designed it that way to give everyone the chance to be part of this. So go to bit.ly/GGM class, and you'll find all the information you need to be part of that masterclass. The masterclass is designed to teach you how to prepare and position for global opportunities like the fellowships, the fellowship we just talked about, scholarships, grants, internships, competitions, and all these amazing opportunities that are out there waiting for you to apply. So join that masterclass. Click that link in the comment section, or just go to graceiheji.com/masterclass. All these links will take you there. Register and be part of my community. There's so much in stock. You know, during the last batch, I gave away a fully funded trip to Kigali, Rwanda for one of our top participants, and her name is Favor Nwabweze. She traveled, she came back, she was overjoyed, she was happy, and there's a lot more in stock for community members coming. A lot more is coming. So I want to tell you to join now. When you attend the masterclass, you'll gain access to the community, and you'll become eligible when for some of my offers that are coming in the future. So yes, do show up, go there, register, and join the masterclass. I'll see you in October. Bye-bye for now.